Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we collect some flower seeds. So let's go. It is the middle of August and I noticed many of my annuals have started to go to seed. And there are really three things I can do at this point. I can collect all the seeds from all of these plants. I can deadhead all my plants so that they keep producing flowers, or I can do both. I can go in and deadhead all my plants because we still have plenty of season left. But in the effort of deadheading the plant, I can also take some of those seed pods and dry them out so that I can be collecting seeds for next year. I've made a number of videos showing you how to collect the seeds from a lot of different plants. What I'll do is I'll put a link to the playlist down in the description below in case you're interested in that. Today is a rainy, gloomy day, and I figured it's a great day to just go ahead and show you how to collect the seeds from a few different plants. So let's get started. We're going to start with the Impatiens. And in this video, I'm also going to be showing you plants that were started from seed, and it was seeds that I collected last year. See this beautiful pink flower? That's one of the Impatiens that was started from seed. And I just love the color. And one thing that I want you to keep in mind is when you collect your own seeds from plants, you might not get a duplicate copy of the parent. It might be slightly different. Here's another window box on my side porch. Just look how beautiful the Impatiens are in here. I grew so many Impatiens from seed because I have a lot of shade here where I live. So these are just hanging baskets that I have on trees. And I love this for the vertical interest that it gives in my backyard. And notice that there are all different shades of Impatiens. And I like that. I like that look. And that's why when I collect the seeds, I don't mind that there's no guarantee on what the color will be. And notice how they really fill in nicely now that it's later in the season. And I really love each color in its own way. I think they all are just so beautiful. This year I experimented with putting some Impatiens in the landscape, and it's been a great experiment for me because I noticed that in certain parts of my yard, the Impatiens thrive, and on other parts, they put on an okay show. And even within this flower bed, notice how pretty they are. But as I keep moving towards a little bit more of a shady section of this flower bed, I notice that the Impatiens aren't blooming as much. They're there, but they're not putting on as great of a show. And that's something I'll keep in mind for next year. It seems that the Impatiens do need a little bit more sun than I thought they did. Here we are at my driveway, and notice again I have more hanging baskets on the trees with more of the Impatiens. And also there's a small flower bed here, and I absolutely love how the Impatiens came out in this flower bed. I will be repeating this pattern again next year. It's such a lovely sight to see when you come up or go down my driveway. I couldn't even imagine the cost of these Impatiens if I was to buy them. It's just, you save so much money when you collect your own seeds from flowers, as well as vegetables and herbs, and even perennials. I recently added some Impatiens under this lilac tree. It was a little bit of an experiment. I wanted to see how they would do. And I'll be honest, I love it. I only put the Impatiens towards the front of the flower bed, and I only put a narrow band around there. Next year, I'll be putting them all around the lilac tree, and I'll definitely be making a larger band of Impatiens under there. Here's the front of my house, and check out those Impatiens. They clearly are happy there. I've repeated the impatiens in this part of my yard many times because I know how well they do in this one area of my yard. If any of you have been watching my videos for any length of time, you may remember when I put together this pot for my porch, as well as these window boxes. There weren't that many impatiens in here, but boy, did they just really fill in nicely. And if you look down at the base of this container pot here in the rocks, you will notice there are little tiny impatiens seedlings that are sprouting. And that's because the impatiens have started to go to seed, and when they drop their seeds, the seeds then might germinate. And I want to show you right nearby that little thing. Well, that's the seed pod, and it's what the seed pod looks like for an impatiens after the pod basically pops open. In fact, there are some more seed pods right there, and I've been noticing them lately, and I made a mental note that, oh boy, I better come and start collecting my impatien seeds. So we're on my front porch, and I figured let's go ahead and look at this plant a little more carefully. This right here is a impatiens flower bud. That's eventually going to turn into an impatiens flower. And that's an example of a flower. And in case you're wondering what kind of flowers these are the beacon impatiens. Here we're looking at an impatiens bloom that has gone by and has now started to create a seed pod. And you'll notice there are a few more over here. They're still quite small. They have plenty of time before they're going to plump up and have seeds inside of them. This little guy right here is starting to plump up, but he's not quite ready yet. This one right here is bigger, but the seeds, if you look carefully, are a white color inside. So it's not ready for us to take from yet. Those seeds need to turn a brown color, and the seed pod needs to plump up even more. This one right here is iffy. I think we're going to go ahead and take this one because I am seeing some brown in the center there. So it's worth taking a chance, and let's go ahead and pick this one. And when you pick it, be really, really careful because it might pop open in your hand. So you want to be ready and just close your hands like this. And then let's go ahead and open it on here. And that's what I meant by it being iffy. Notice that some of the seeds in here are a white color and there are a few that are brown. So it was a little too early for the picking, but that's okay. It's good to see the difference of what we're looking for here. Okay, I'm looking at two here. There's one over here and there's one over there. Notice I don't want to touch them because the minute you touch them, they pop open if they're ready. This one here to me looks like it's more ready than the other one. So we're going to go ahead and take this. And let's go ahead and see if the seeds in there are brown. Now notice the difference. These seeds here are definitely a brown color. And they are very wet. We've had a lot of rain. And with all the seeds I'll be showing you today, I'll be going over later what I do to make sure I dry them out. So that is a perfect example of seed pod that was ready to be picked. And now you can see close up what the seeds look like. And as the seed pod starts to dry out, what will happen is there's more seeds in here, and then you can go ahead and remove them from the seed pod. Okay, I'm feeling lucky. This one right here looks nice and plump to me. So let's go ahead and remove it as well. So that one popped in my hand as soon as I removed it from the plant. But you get the idea now of what you're looking for when you're collecting impatient seeds. A common question that I get about seeds in general when you collect them is, will a seed that's not ripe ripen on its own when removed from a plant? To be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that. I think it really depends on the plant. Personally, though, it's my preference to collect seeds that are fully ripe on a plant. I think it's better that way, and I highly suggest that you do the same thing. What I'm going to do for you is put a close-up shot at what the seeds look like, just so you can know what you're looking for when you're collecting your own seeds. And I'm going to put a dime next to them so that you can see the size of the seeds next to a US dime. I will tell you that the seed pods that you remove, if they pop in your hand, there's a very good chance that those seeds are brown color and are ripe and ready for the picking. Whereas seed pods that don't pop open in your hand and you kind of have to force them to open, many times those are the white seeds that are not ready for picking. The next plant we're going to collect seeds from are wax begonias. And here are some that we planted in the springtime. And I want you to notice all the different variations in color with these plants. And the reason is because when I collect the seeds, again, there's no guarantee on what color the flowers will be. There'll be a slight variation. But I actually think that's really pretty and makes it just a little more interesting around the landscape and in pots. These right here are the blooms. Those are the male flowers. And typically right near the male flowers, you're going to find the female seed pods, which are right here. Now, notice the color. They're a greenish pink color. If the seed pods are a greenish color, you don't want to collect them yet. They're not ready. The other thing I want you to notice is it looks like a little tiny wing or a little tiny rocket ship. But if you look carefully, you see these little brown papery things? Those are seed pods that have gone by, and those are ready for the picking. So you can just come right in here and pick these off. And inside each of those seed pods are, I don't know how many, a ton, and I mean a ton of seeds. And I'll show you what they look like. I tell everyone the seeds of wax and tuberous begonias are like dust. And when it comes to collecting the seeds from this plant, what I like to do when I label it is I might just say it's a pink blossom, because generally everything here is some shade of pink, and they're definitely a taller variety of begonia. I could say something about the leaves as well. They're a reddish colored leaf. And I think that's sufficient enough of what I would put when I'm storing my seeds. So we're going to come in right here. And again, we can remove the seed pod that's ready for the picking. And there's another one right there. And I can assure you, just the 4 seed pods that we've collected so far would be more than plenty for what I would need to supply my whole garden with these types of begonias. And I just wanted to show you, look at all the seed pods here at the base of this plant. Before I show you what the seeds of the wax begonia looks like, look at this begonia here. It's the same variety or same type of begonias that we just looked at around the pond. And just notice how big it is. And it's just so beautiful. And in this example, I wanted to show you again, here's a bloom. Right there though, that is the bud. So that flower bud will turn into a bloom. Again, these are seed pods that are not ready for picking yet. These little papery guys that you see here, these are ready to be picked. And that's literally one begonia plant right there that we started from seed during the winter months. Isn't that amazing? And here's another begonia plant that we also put in a pot on my side porch, one plant that was started from seed. I think it's good to show you some of these plants and where I put them in the landscape, just to give you some inspiration and some ideas. And notice this begonia is a white one. So when I come in, I'm going to collect the seeds from it, but it's not guaranteed that the seeds will produce a white plant again, because right near it is that begonia plant. But it's still worth it for me to collect the seeds from this plant once it creates seed pods that are ripe, because these seed pods are not ready yet. And I will label it having green leaves and a white flower, because it is a little different than my other plants. And notice in this bed that I knew the color of the plants that were the white color, which is why they're planted the way they are. Pretty much every other plant in this flower bed. So there's another white one. But I'm not too picky, because a lot of what I'm doing here is just landscaping and using these plants in my own yard. I wanted to bring you to what I call the rose garden, and I want to show you something in the center of this bed. There are a ton of white begonias that I started from seed. Again, you know the story, seed that I collected last year. Now in this particular bed, that's the only color of begonia, are the white ones with the green leaves. So it's most likely that when I do collect the seeds from this begonia, it's going to be from this bed. Look how pretty they are. And they're not as tall and leggy, because I really took after them and cut them back. And I'm glad I did. I think they look really pretty like that. And because I cut them back so hard and it was later in the season, there aren't any seed pods that have formed yet that are ready for picking. So I can see here's one seed pod, but I need to wait for it to become that brown papery color. I think you're an expert now, and you can probably tell me which one in this view right here is the seed pod. Here in my backyard, I have more of the begonias. And I love showing you where I have this planted all around my yard. Because again, if you were to price out how much it would cost to buy this many plants, it would be pretty ridiculous. So I'm really glad that I was able to start so many wax begonias from seed. And well, I don't have many red wax begonias in my yard. I think I only have this one. So you better believe it. I'll take a chance. And when this has gone by and created seeds, I'll come in and get the seed pods off it. This is a different example, but these are buds that are going to turn into flowers. You can see the flowers here, more buds right here. And I'm not noticing even one single seed pod yet. So we just have to be patient. Here in my backyard, I did put this white colored begonia also by itself. There's no other plant here. So you can see right there, those are seed pods, but they're not ready for the picking yet. But I have great news. On this plant here, if we come in closely, you can see that there are a number of seed pods that I can take from there. And honestly, those alone will be more than plenty for what I need for next year. How exciting. And I love having these white begonias towards the front of this flower bed. They're clearly happy here. So this is kind of why I'm videoing this, is not only to give you inspiration, but then I'll remind myself for next year what worked and what didn't work in my landscape as well as in container pots. Here's a close-up of the seed pods that we collected from around the pond. And these seed pods are quite wet, so just keep that in mind, that when we release the seeds, that they're going to be a little bit sticking to the seed pod. If you look very carefully, and you can see I have it zoomed right in, see those little teeny tiny specks? Those are the seeds. And unfortunately, I can't show you what the dust looks like, but I can assure you I have another video that shows you what the dust looks like. So what I can do is pop some of that up on the screen, at least a picture of it, from last year's footage of the same type of video. So I just rubbed the inside of the seed pod, and again, you can see that they are so tiny. Those are the seeds, but they basically are very small. So just remember that. And when it comes time to sowing these, you'll be sowing them absolutely on the surface because you don't want to cover those tiny little seeds. We're going to try to open this one. I'm still hoping that I can show you some of the seeds. And let's just flick it a little or shake it. There we go. Those little tiny specks, yep, those are the seeds. Look how small they are next to the big seed pod. The next plant that we're going to collect seeds from are impatiens. I've learned everyone loves impatiens. They are so great for the pollinator. They have a very sweet smell to them. They do tend to get pretty leggy, and I started to, but I need to finish cutting them back so that they can put on a nice fresh amount of growth and be nice and bushy again. But I did want to come in and collect some seeds before I do that. So in this example here, you have in the center, those are the flower buds. And then the flower buds will open, and then you'll have the little tiny flowers. Now my alyssum is white, but the alyssum also comes in purple and pink colors as well. In this example here, we have seed pods that are forming. But notice these guys right here, those seed pods are not ready yet. They're not ripe. Some of them are green, and some of them are a white color, I'd say. But as you follow the plant down, see that little papery thing there? Those have already opened up and released the seeds from the seed pod. But this guy right there, that has a seed inside of it. I'm going to show you. Let's remove it. And you can see the seeds. They're clear as day. They're like a brown color, and there looks to be 2 seeds there. And so what I did was I just removed both seeds from the seed pod. So now the seed pod has nothing in it. And by the way, when you have a seed pod like that, that's called a chaff, and you can discard it or throw it away. But 2 seeds right there will create 2 plants, which is pretty amazing. So in this example here, again, notice there's a lot of blooms going on in the top of the plant. But if you look towards the bottom or the back of the plant, you can see that the blooms are faded and seed pods are being formed. And you'll notice that there's some green ones there. Those are definitely not ready yet. But in this example here, notice right there, you can see it. It's like a light brown color. That has the seed inside of it, and that's what you want to collect. So let's go ahead and remove that. And when I did that, I have one seed there, and if I look down carefully, I have another seed there. So typically it seems like most of the Alyssum seed pods have about 2 seeds in them. And I have to tell you, most of what you see in this flower bed are annuals that were started from seed, and there were seeds that I collected from last year. So it's quite possible to do something like that if you're just patient and you just start collecting the seeds now and then getting ready for the winter months when it's time to sow them. And what I'm showing you right now is a close-up of what the Alyssum seeds look like compared to a dime that's right near them. What we have here is calendula. Look how pretty that is. And this is an example right here of a flower bud. You can see the seeds in there, but they're green. They're not ready to be picked yet. So this seed pod is not quite ripe yet. In this example, the seed pod is a dark brown color and the seeds inside are brown as well. So we can go ahead and just snip off the stem. To remove the seeds, all you have to do is just basically move the seed pod around with your fingers. And what you're looking at is a close-up of the seeds. And any of the non-seed material, again, is the shaft, and you can just throw that away. Here we have some trailing lobelia. I have some purple colored trailing lobelia in my yard as well as white. So what we're going to take the seeds from are my white ones. This right here is what the flower bud looks like, and this is one of the blooms. And here are some more blooms. Where my finger is, that is a seed pod that's forming, and that forms after the blossom has gone by. Notice it's a green color. That means it's not ready for us to take seeds from. Oftentimes at the base of trailing lobelia is where you're going to find the seed pods. You're looking for that same type of seed pod that was green, but it needs to be a light tan or a brown color. And you can see some right there. So again, you're looking for ones that are not green. You want them to be a tan color, and typically the stem will be tan as well as the seed pod. We just had rain. Everything is pretty soggy and wet, but I could still collect the seeds and let them dry out for a number of days. So I'm just going to pinch the stem of this seed pod right here, and you can see how small it is next to my fingers. That's a close-up shot at what the white trailing lobelia seed pods look like. So let's go ahead and remove the seeds from one of the seed pods. Now, normally it'd be a lot easier if the seed pods were dry, so just keep that in mind. They're sticking to my fingers, but I am going to show you close up what the seeds look like. They are teeny tiny, and all I'm doing is just basically raking the seed pod around in my fingers to release the seeds. So what you're looking at now is a close-up shot at what the lobelia seeds look like. They are so small. Well, I really hope you learned a little bit in terms of collecting seeds from these annuals that are quite popular. And even if you don't have the annuals in your own landscape, I'm sure you can find them in someone else's landscape, someone else's yard. You might even find it at a garden center, and you can ask them if you can collect the seeds from the plant. In a way, you're helping deadhead the plants. That's the way I look at it. I often collect seeds from parks also, so definitely check out a local park close to your house. Maybe you have a main street or downtown and they have container pots. I'm always on the lookout for seeds. So I did put the seeds on paper, and I'm going to let them dry on the paper. I made sure I labeled them with what the name of the plant was, maybe what the color was as well. I'll be putting these papers indoors in my house in a room where no one's going to walk by and the seeds are just going to fly everywhere. And I'm going to let them sit there for at least a week, especially because they are super damp, super wet from today's rain. And once the seeds have dried out, I can then go ahead and start storing them. I like that they're on a piece of paper because I can fold the paper in half and I can funnel the seeds off the paper. I've always stored my seeds in small Ziploc bags, and that's always worked for me. The key is to make sure no matter what you use that your seeds are fully dry. And don't forget to label whatever you're putting your seeds in. I always like to put what the name of the plant is, what color the blooms are, if there are blooms, and then also what year I collected the seeds. Because oftentimes seeds lose their viability as each year goes by. So you want to make sure you know when you collected your seeds. And then I'm going to store my seeds in a cool, dark, dry place. I don't want it to be very moist, humid, or damp. So find somewhere where you live where you can store them in that type of location. Down in the description below, I'll put any videos that are related to seed collecting in case you're interested. I've made videos on how I organize my seeds, I've even made videos on how I start my seeds. So if you're interested in any of those videos, you can always look down in the description and click on any of those links. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.